The general concern among some on the street is that these companies still have a lot of need for cash, underappreciated liabilities, despite the wave that we saw on Election Day. What's going on, do you think?
Well, I think we should be very specific here. If we're talking about the Canadian names, the Canadian story was something that benefited early on from a federal market opening early, capital flowing into those companies, and their balance sheets getting very rich, and they were able to go after some very aggressive business plans without really having tested the strength of the market. So we've seen some real challenges in terms of operational efficiency, and the earnings out of a lot of these companies, including Tilray, Aurora, have just been really disappointing for investors across the board. And we are, however, thinking much more positively about what we're seeing in the U.S. So right now, the way this sector moves is it does move based on catalysts. I would consider that the election with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris winning was a catalyst driving interest into the sector, maybe thinking that we're moving towards progress here. But we have to become very nuanced in terms of how we think about what this means for how these companies will be performing.
When you say nuanced, what do you mean? You mean just trying to excise Canada from the portfolio or something else?
Well, I think you have to just pick your operators carefully. I mean, what we're looking at today is GTI is going to be announcing, that's a US MSO, they're going to be announcing their earnings after the close. And we're very excited to see what companies like GTI, Curaleaf, Trulieve are doing in the sector, because they really are the ones who stand to benefit from what's going on in this shift in sentiment. Some of the Canadian operators, like Canopy Growth Corp, seems to be getting their feet under them a little bit more, and they're driving towards execution. But we're really excited about what we're seeing in the U.S. And something that U.S. investors or other investors should contemplate is what's coming behind these existing U.S. operators that are publicly listed. As I'm anticipating that some of these private operators, like Ascend Wellness Holdings, will be looking at a public listing within 2021. And I think we're going to see very strong operations out of those companies.
Emily, what is the chance for nationalized legalization in the U.S. Under a Biden administration?
You know, we tend to be much more cautious and long view in terms of how we think about when these things will happen. When we first launched our fund in 2014, we thought maybe 2021 we would see some shifts at the federal level. But the way that things have moved in the U.S. government these days, with what's happening in the Senate, with what's happening in Congress, we think that this could be slowed down further. We know that Biden and Harris have committed to decriminalizing cannabis. I talk about nuance a lot because it does matter in terms of how these markets are implemented and how regulation is implemented. So it is critical for us to think about the fine points of these things. For us, the most important thing that can happen at the federal level is shifts in banking. And that's not just for access to bank accounts and lines of credit and all of the things that these businesses deserve to have. It's really access to the uplisting to the NASDAQ, to the New York Stock Exchange, so that we can get more institutional investors access into these names like GTI, Curaleaf, Trulieve, TerraSend, all of these wonderful names that are really driving growth in our industry. I mean, the industry is growing 40% year over year in the U.S. So if we can capture that growth with these operators, and I believe that we can create jobs and we can create real lasting businesses.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.